My son said, "We don't need you anymore." I left, and I never thought I'd see him like this again. The words hit me like a bullet I never saw coming. Standing in the doorway of the house I'd raised him in, the walls echoing with laughter from years past, I froze. My own son, my flesh and blood, was looking at me with cold, unreadable eyes. It wasn't just disappointment in his tone. It was something far worse: rejection. "Dad, you've done enough. We don't need you anymore," he said, his voice almost casual, like he was discussing what kind of cereal to buy. My heart skipped, then shattered. I wanted to speak, to ask why, to remind him of all the sacrifices I had made. But the words wouldn't come. The house felt empty suddenly, as if the walls themselves were mourning with me. I could smell the faint scent of his mother's perfume, long gone from this world but still lingering in the air. The furniture, the photos on the walls, the trophies I'd proudly displayed, all reminders of a family that no longer existed in the way I thought it did. I tried to hold myself together. "Son, what are you saying?" I asked, voice shaking despite my attempts to remain calm. He looked away, shoulders stiff. "It's simple, Dad. We're fine without you. You've had your time. Now it's our turn." I stepped closer, desperate to understand. "Our turn? We? Son, I've been here for you every step of the way, every late night, every scraped knee, every mistake you made. I've been there." "Why would you say this?" His silence spoke louder than any words could. That silence was the kind of dagger that twists in your chest and leaves you hollow. And then, without another word, he walked past me and into his room, shutting the door behind him with a force that seemed to echo across my soul. I stood there, paralyzed, memories flashing in my mind, his first steps, the baseball games, the nights I stayed up because he was sick. All those years, all that love, all thrown aside in one heartbeat. The first thing I knew I had to do was leave. Not in anger, not in haste, but to survive emotionally. I packed my essentials quietly, not taking much: my pride, my dignity, and the clothes I could wear for the road. The city outside had become a maze of memories that felt suffocating, and I needed air, distance, a chance to breathe. As I drove away, headlights cutting through the early winter dusk, I felt a strange mix of grief and clarity. I couldn't save the relationship right now, but I could save myself. Somewhere along the way, I promised myself my son would understand one day. But the road ahead was dark, lonely, and terrifying. The first night away from my home, I stayed in a small roadside inn, the flickering neon sign outside casting uneasy shadows across the room. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages I didn't open, friends offering advice, family checking in, even neighbors curious about my sudden absence. None of it mattered. The wound was deeper than words could heal. I walked along the empty street outside the inn, the bitter wind slicing at my face, and realized just how fragile relationships could be, even the ones you thought were unbreakable. I passed by families laughing together, couples holding hands, children running after stray dogs. Each scene stabbed at me, reminding me of what I had lost, or what I had been cast aside from. And then a thought struck me like lightning. My son, the boy I raised with love and hope, was living his life without a clue of the storm he had just unleashed. Did he understand the weight of his words, the destruction they carried? Would he realize what he had lost if it weren't too late? I didn't have the answers. I only had the journey ahead. I had to rebuild my life, find my strength again, and wait. Wait for the moment when the universe, or fate, would bring the scales back into balance. Little did I know, that moment would come sooner than I expected, and the scene of our confrontation would not be what I imagined.
I never imagined the next time I saw him, it wouldn't be in his room or at the dinner table, but at a place no father ever wants to see his child, working behind a gas station counter, barely recognized by the world, and certainly not by me. The morning air bit at my face as I parked my car outside the dim, fluorescent-lit gas station. The neon signs buzzed and flickered, casting strange shadows across the asphalt. I hadn't expected much when I followed the address a neighbor had quietly whispered. Just curiosity, a vague hope that my son might have changed, that maybe the words from that fateful day were not the last we'd exchange. When I stepped inside, my heart nearly stopped. There he was, my son, the boy I had once held in my arms, now a man I barely recognized. He was wearing a faded uniform, a cap pulled low over his eyes, scanning the shelves with an almost robotic precision. The energy, the fire I had nurtured in him seemed gone. I cleared my throat softly, not wanting to startle him. "Son?" He jumped, eyes wide, heart racing, or maybe it was mine. His face paled slightly, as if seeing me was a ghost from a life he wanted to forget. "Dad?" His voice was hoarse, stripped of the arrogance or the confidence I remembered. I walked closer, every step heavy with a mix of fear and hope. "It's me, your father." For a long, tense moment, he didn't speak. He just stared, as if he were trying to decide if I was real or some hallucination conjured by his own guilty conscience. Then he shook his head and muttered, I can't talk right now." The words were soft but edged with steel. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Why are you here? Why working at this place?" His jaw tightened and he looked away. "Life happened, Dad. Things didn't go the way we planned." I studied him closely, the way his hands trembled slightly as he stocked the shelves, the haunted shadows under his eyes, the deep crease on his forehead that hadn't been there before. This wasn't just about him losing a job or moving out. It was about him losing himself, and part of me ached to see it. I tried a gentler approach. "Son, I know I left, but I never stopped caring. I never stopped believing in you. You can tell me anything." He laughed, but it was hollow, a sound that made my chest tighten. "Anything?" he asked, his voice a mix of bitterness and sorrow. "You left me when I needed you. You abandoned me." I froze. The weight of his accusation hit me like a sledgehammer. "I left because I had no choice," I said, my voice trembling. "But I never abandoned you. I always loved you. I always will." He turned, eyes glistening, and for a moment I saw the boy I had raised, the one who had clung to my legs, who had looked up at me with pure admiration. But the man in front of me was hardened by years of resentment, pride, and mistakes. "Love?" he spat. "Love doesn't pay bills, Dad. Love doesn't fix the humiliation, the embarrassment of being thrown out of your own home by the people who were supposed to protect you." The words cut deep, each one a jagged shard of glass tearing through my heart. I had known there was anger, but not this level of venom, not this depth of betrayal. I opened my mouth to respond, to defend myself, but a sudden noise stopped me. A customer had entered, a middle-aged man carrying a carton of soda, and my son's hands shook slightly as he scanned the items. That little human hesitation, it gave me hope. He was still my son. Somewhere beneath the anger, beneath the bitterness, the child I had nurtured was still there. I cleared my throat. "I don't know what happened between us, son, but I want to help. I'll do anything to make it right." He stared at me for a long, heart-stopping moment. Then his expression hardened again. "I don't want your help," he said coldly. "I don't want nothing from you. I've built my own life, Dad, and it doesn't include you." My chest constricted. I wanted to grab him, shake him, make him understand that life could be different, that forgiveness could be possible. But before I could speak, the beep of the cash register rang. Another customer, another interruption. I realized then that my son was trapped in a cycle of pride, pain, and miscommunication, and that breaking through would take more than words. It would take time, patience, and perhaps a shocking revelation that even I wasn't ready for. As I walked out of the gas station into the cold morning air, one thought burned in my mind. He may have rejected me, but the universe has a way of leveling the playing field, and one day he'll see the consequences of turning his back on the one person who never stopped loving him.
I never imagined that a simple peek inside his wallet could unravel a secret so devastating. It would change everything between us. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about him. The boy I had raised, the man I barely recognized, and the life he had created without me. Curiosity gnawed at me like a relentless storm. I knew I had to see him again to understand what had brought him here. I returned to the gas station, pretending to check the price of fuel, but my eyes were fixed on him. He moved with mechanical precision, greeting customers with a tight-lipped smile that didn't reach his eyes. Every gesture seemed rehearsed, almost like a mask he had perfected over years of hiding his true feelings. As the morning rush dwindled, a moment of vulnerability appeared. He leaned against the counter, wiping sweat from his brow, and absent-mindedly dropped his wallet on the edge of the register. It slid slightly, exposing its contents. My heart raced. A sudden impulse made me step closer, pretending to pick up a stray receipt, but really, I stole a glance inside. And then I saw it. A small folded note tucked inside the wallet, stained and creased. My hands trembled as I picked it up discreetly. The handwriting was unmistakable, my daughter's. She had written something to him, something secret. My pulse spiked. Remember, Dad must never know. The inheritance is ours. Everything he owns, we claim. I froze. My stomach dropped. My son, my child, had been manipulated, perhaps even unknowingly used in a scheme that could destroy our family. My mind raced back to the day I was pushed out of my own home, the coldness in his eyes, and the betrayal I had felt. It all made sense now. But understanding didn't stop the pain. It only sharpened the dagger. I stepped back, pretending to check another shelf as he rang up the last customer. The casual manner in which he handled the till made me ache. My own son, unknowingly following his wife's secretive plans, had become a pawn in a game I hadn't even seen coming. After the rush ended, I approached him quietly. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice low and steady. He flinched, but didn't turn to face me. "I don't want to talk, Dad. You wouldn't understand." I held up the note discreetly. "I know everything now, about the plan, about what's been happening behind my back. You've been misled, and it's tearing you apart." He finally looked at me, a mix of anger, confusion, and fear in his eyes. How did you—" His voice caught. "Doesn't matter how," I interrupted gently. "What matters is fixing this. We can stop it, before it's too late." A moment of silence hung between us, heavy and suffocating. Then he let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Too late? Dad, we've lost so much already. Maybe this is just how life works. You win some, you lose some. You never told me that losing you would hurt this much." The words pierced me like lightning. I reached out, placing my hand on his shoulder. "Son, I am here now. We can fix it together. You don't have to carry this alone anymore." He hesitated, the walls around his heart cracking just slightly. But before he could respond, the bell above the gas station door jingled. A delivery man entered, dropping a package on the counter. My son's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a luxurious, personalized watch, engraved with my name. And that's when the second shock hit me. Alongside the watch, there was a letter from a law firm. "All properties and assets are under your daughter's control, effective immediately. Your son is the legal custodian." My son's face drained of color. He looked at me, the realization dawning. He had been set up, betrayed by someone he loved, and unknowingly complicit in taking what was mine. I knew then that I had to act, but carefully. One wrong move, and he might never forgive me. One wrong move, and the plan would succeed, leaving me powerless. I leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Son, there's still a way to turn this around, but we need courage and trust. Will you stand with me?" His eyes met mine, a storm raging in them. Fear, regret, longing. I don't know if I can."
I never expected that walking into my own living room would feel like stepping onto a battlefield. But today, my son and I were about to face the war that had been brewing silently for years. The afternoon sun slanted through the blinds of my modest apartment, casting long, sharp lines across the floor. Every shadow seemed heavier than the last, as if the walls themselves were aware of the storm about to erupt. I had called my son over under the guise of a simple conversation, coffee and honest talk, but my instinct screamed that this was no ordinary chat. He arrived precisely at 3 p.m., as punctual as ever. The familiar sound of the door opening made my chest tighten. My son stepped in, tall and tense, his eyes darting around, as if checking for invisible threats. He carried the weight of the watch and the law firm letter like a scar across his chest, a silent testimony to the betrayal he'd endured. "Dad," he started, his voice tight, "what's this about?" I motioned him to sit, keeping my own expression neutral, almost clinical. "We need to talk about the recent, developments. The inheritance, your wife, the properties, everything." He sat, arms folded like a fortress. "I don't know why we're even having this discussion. It's done. I followed her instructions. She said it was what's best for the family." The words hit me like ice. Best for the family, or best for her agenda? I leaned forward, letting my voice carry both fury and despair. "You've been manipulated, son. You've been used, and you didn't even realize it." He stared at me, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "Manipulated? Used? Dad, you don't understand. I did what I had to do, for us." I let out a bitter laugh, the sound echoing off the walls. "For us? Or for her? You've turned against your own father, son, and for what? A promise from someone who doesn't care if you live or die?" He bristled, standing suddenly. "That's enough. I'm tired of being accused. I followed the plan." I rose to meet him, my eyes locking with his. The plan that nearly destroyed our family, the plan that put me in a position where I could lose everything I built with my own hands. The tension in the room was almost tangible. Every heartbeat was loud, every breath drawn like a battle cry. I could see the conflict tearing him apart inside, the loyalty to his wife, the love for his father, the gnawing guilt he tried desperately to suppress. Then came the moment that shattered the fragile calm. My son's phone buzzed loudly on the table. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. The screen displayed a single message. "He knows everything. We must act now. Your wife." Time seemed to slow down. The betrayal, the conspiracy, the danger, it all converged in that single instant. My son's hands shook as he dropped the phone. I moved closer, voice calm, but deadly serious. "It's not too late to make this right, son, but you have to choose, your wife or your family. Your future depends on it." His eyes filled with tears, a storm of fear, regret, and confusion. I don't know if I can defy her. She'll destroy me. I reached out, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. Then let her try, because standing by her side and letting her ruin everything we built, that would destroy you more than defiance ever could. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, father and son, connected by blood and history, yet divided by betrayal. And then, the sound of the door slamming open behind us. It was her, his wife, eyes blazing, lips twisted in a triumphant smile. She had come to check if her plan was succeeding, if her husband would obey her completely. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed, voice cold as ice. "You're meddling in things you don't understand." And in that moment, my son finally acted. The man I raised, the boy I once held in my arms, turned to face her, voice steady, shaking slightly. "No, I won't do this anymore. Not for you, not against my father. This ends now." The room went silent. She froze. His defiance was like a thunderclap, a line crossed that she never anticipated. And that's when I realized the battle was only just beginning.
I never thought the person I trusted most could be standing on the other side, orchestrating everything I feared. But today, the truth would crash down like a hurricane. The room was thick with tension, every shadow suddenly seeming like a threat. His wife, my daughter-in-law, stood rigid, lips pressed thin, fury and disbelief flickering across her face. My son had just defied her in a way she clearly didn't anticipate. The air itself seemed to vibrate with anticipation, a storm ready to break. She's lying, Dad," my son whispered, voice tight. "All of it. She's been manipulating me since day one." I clenched my jaw, trying to steady my own pulse. Years of mistrust, anger, and betrayal bubbled up inside me, mixing with a glimmer of hope. My son had finally seen through the facade. "Show me everything," I said firmly. "I need to know exactly how deep this goes." He nodded, and together we moved to the desk where his phone and laptop sat. His hands trembled as he unlocked them, revealing messages, emails, and financial documents, evidence of a plot so meticulous it could have destroyed our entire family legacy. The first shock came from the bank transfers. Millions had been quietly redirected to accounts we didn't recognize, accounts tied directly to her family. She had been siphoning our savings, pretending to be devoted, while secretly preparing to strip us bare. Next, the emails. Thread after thread detailed instructions she had sent to my son, carefully manipulating him with guilt, promises, and veiled threats. Every word was designed to erode his trust in me, while tightening her control over him. And finally, the hidden contracts. Agreements for the sale of properties I had built, including the house my son had sold without my permission. He hadn't acted alone. She had been the mastermind, turning my own child against me. My stomach churned. I could feel the blood in my ears. This was no longer just a family betrayal. It was a full-blown takeover. And the cruelest part? She had planned it so meticulously that my son couldn't be blamed, at least not entirely. I leaned closer to him. "You can still make this right. You can fight back, but we must be smart, not angry, not reckless." He nodded slowly, determination growing in his eyes. "Then let's fix this, together." And at that moment, a flicker of hope surged within me. We had been betrayed, we had been tested, but we were not defeated.
The betrayal had cut deeper than any blade, but standing in the ruins of what we thought was family trust, we realized one truth. It wasn't over yet. The night was thick, heavy with humidity, the moon a sliver of pale silver over the quiet streets. My son and I sat across from each other at the small kitchen table of my old apartment, our temporary refuge after the shocking revelation. The envelope she had thrown at us earlier sat untouched on the counter, a silent reminder of the battle ahead. "I can't believe she would do this," my son muttered, voice low, almost a growl. "How could she turn everything we built against us?" I leaned back in my chair, my eyes narrowing. She's clever, ruthless, but she underestimated something. Our bond and my patience. That's her fatal mistake. We spent hours poring over the documents, tracing the transactions, and understanding how she had manipulated the legal system to her favor. Every step she had taken was precise, calculated, but not infallible. Somewhere, buried in the chaos, was a weakness we could exploit. "We need to hit where it hurts the most," I said finally, voice low but firm. "Not her finances, not her reputation. We strike at her credibility, the one thing she can't buy or fake." My son leaned forward, eyes burning with resolve. "We'll expose her. Everyone will know, and she'll never get away with treating family this way again." We began drafting the plan. It wasn't just about reclaiming the house. It was about restoring trust, reclaiming dignity, and ensuring that the betrayal would leave a permanent mark on her carefully constructed world. We would use the evidence, the emails, the contracts, and even the staff who had witnessed her manipulations. As we worked, I noticed a shadow flickering outside the window. I froze. My heart jumped. Could she have followed us? Was she watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again? Then, a soft knock at the door. My son tensed. I moved cautiously, opening it to reveal a familiar face, an old friend of mine, someone who had connections in law and media. His expression was grave. "You're going to need help," he said bluntly, "and not just legally. This will get ugly fast." I nodded. "We're ready. We can't back down now." He handed me a folder thick with information, previous legal disputes, her past manipulations, and even evidence of her misappropriating funds from other ventures. Every piece was a weapon in our arsenal, waiting to be deployed. "She thought she had all the power," I whispered, flipping through the folder. "She has no idea what's coming." The next morning, we began subtly reaching out to witnesses, allies, and even media contacts. Every move was calculated to ensure that when the truth came out, it would hit like a thunderclap. But, as the day wore on, I noticed something chilling. My son received a message on his phone, a single line that made my blood run cold. "You think you can play this game? Watch closely. Everything you love will be gone by tomorrow." It was from her. The threats were real, and the stakes had just escalated. We couldn't act recklessly. We had to be patient, meticulous, and cunning. The betrayal had set the stage, but now it was time for the counterstrike, and I realized for the first time the depth of her desperation. She would go to any lengths to maintain control, but we had something far stronger: truth and family. She's playing for keeps, but so are we. And just as we finalized our strategy, a sudden knock at the door made both of us jump. My son looked at me with wide eyes. "Dad, she's here. She knows we're planning something." I took a deep breath. Then it's time she learns one lesson she'll never forget.
I never imagined a night like this. The house, the betrayal's mastermind standing face to face with me. The moon hung low, casting long shadows across the driveway as the sleek black car pulled up. My son and I exchanged a glance. We knew who it was before she even stepped out. The woman who had shattered our trust. The architect of the chaos that had turned our lives upside down. Her heels clicked against the concrete as she approached, confidence radiating, but there was a glimmer of uncertainty in her eyes. She had expected us to cower, to beg, to be powerless. She had underestimated the bond between father and son and the fury of a man betrayed. "Good evening," she said, her voice smooth but brittle, rehearsed for confrontation, yet tinged with panic. "I hear you've been making plans?" I stepped forward, my chest tight, heart racing. "Plans? Oh, we have plans. Plans that involve exposing every lie you've told, every move you've made, every ounce of betrayal you've inflicted." She smiled coldly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You think you can stop me? You're too late. Everything is already in motion. The house, the accounts, the witnesses, they're all mine. You can't touch me." My son clenched his fists, his jaw tight. "You forgot one thing. You can't erase the truth. You can't erase the people who've seen you, who know what you've done." I stepped closer. "You played with fire when you betrayed family, and now it's your turn to feel the burn." Her eyes narrowed. "You're bluffing. You have nothing. And even if you did, what would you do? Ruin me? You'll ruin yourself in the process." I held up the thick folder of evidence, letting the moonlight catch its edges. "This isn't a bluff. Every document, every witness, every transaction. You thought you were clever, but you left a trail, and it leads straight to you." The air was electric, the tension palpable. Then, just as she opened her mouth to retort, my son pulled out his phone, projecting live video of her past manipulations to the large screen we had set up outside for neighbors, friends, and media contacts. The truth unfolded in front of her. Emails, messages, hidden agreements, each one a nail in the coffin of her lies. Her face drained of color. The poised, confident woman was unraveling before us. This isn't possible," she stammered, voice shaking. You can't prove—" I cut her off. "Oh, but we can and we will. You thought the house, the money, the influence made you untouchable, but nothing protects you from the consequences of betrayal." Then, a sudden siren in the distance. The local authorities, tipped off in advance, were arriving. She realized, finally, that the game was over, not just with us, but with the law. And in that moment, I knew she had underestimated the most powerful force in the world. Not wealth, not influence, not cunning. Family, loyalty, and the courage to stand up when betrayed. "You thought you could take everything from us, but tonight, justice finally arrives." It was over. The storm had passed, but the echoes of betrayal would linger forever, and the victory tasted sweeter than I could have imagined. The flashing lights of the police cars reflected off the wet pavement, creating a surreal aura around the house. My son and I stood side by side, watching as she was escorted out in handcuffs, her confident demeanor completely shattered. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more terror. The woman who had nearly destroyed our family was now powerless, her empire crumbling before her eyes.
Neighbors gathered cautiously at a distance, whispers of astonishment rippling through the crowd. Word spread quickly about the audacious confrontation, and even the local news crew had arrived, cameras rolling, capturing every humiliating moment of her downfall. She had underestimated the truth, underestimated the bond between a father and a son, and underestimated the will to protect what mattered most. I took a deep breath, finally feeling the weight lifting off my shoulders. The house, the inheritance, the memories, they were safe again. But more than that, the lesson was clear. Betrayal carries a price, and justice, though sometimes delayed, is inevitable. My son looked at me, his green eyes, so much like mine, reflecting both pride and relief. "Dad, we did it," he said quietly. "We actually did it." I smiled, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. We did, together. And we showed her that family isn't something you can manipulate or discard. It's loyalty, love, and courage. That's what she couldn't touch. Later, inside the house, we sat together recounting every moment of the ordeal. There were tears, yes, frustration, pain, and even regret for the time lost to her schemes. But there was also laughter, a release from the tension that had been strangling us for months. The authorities finalized the charges. Her assets were frozen, her manipulative contracts nullified, and the truth about her deceit became public record. The headlines were clear. Local woman arrested after family betrayal exposed. Our story, though shocking, inspired many, and for the first time in months, I felt a strange sense of peace.
As I walked through the house that evening, every room seemed brighter, every shadow lighter. The memories of her treachery remained, but they no longer held power. My son and I had reclaimed our home, our dignity, and most importantly, our bond. And as I looked out over the city skyline, the first rays of dawn cutting through the lingering night, I realized something profound. Life will always test you. Betrayal will always try to break you. But the courage to face it, to stand firm with those you love, will always bring justice in the end. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from wealth, power, or cunning, but from standing tall when the world tries to tear you down, and knowing that family will always be your shield.